Hi there, my name is Kate Thompson. I am the author of a series of fiction and non-fiction books set in the East End of London, largely in the 20th century. I am a massive, passionate supporter of Tower Hamlets libraries because I've spent so much time in them over the last 6 years, everything from interviewing people, research, I've launched my books in them. I've given talks across many of the libraries, particularly Cubitt Town, which is a thriving local reader and history group. And I've grown to love these libraries. You know, they're very much a part of the fabric of East End society. And I genuinely don't think I could do my job without them, because libraries are more than repositories of books. They're places and spaces to invite conversation and connect and meet with people. And for me as an author, that is just invaluable. I do feel passionately about this, like I said, and as such I wrote some articles this week for various newspapers, and I'd like to share this article with you today, one of which is about my favourite East End library, Bethnal Green, and its remarkable history. So I'll read it to you now, if I may. It was opened as a symbol of hope for East Londoners and became the scene of the Second World War's greatest resistance stories. But as Bethnal Green Library approaches its 100th birthday, the celebration parties have been put on ice. For this week, council leaders in East London are set to decide its future. This symbol of working class defiance during the Blitz may end up reduced to a shadow of its former self. As a historical novelist, I wonder how many of the people wielding the axe know anything about the remarkable backstory of the building and those within it who ensured that during the darkest times, working class East Enders had access to books. Bethnal Green's first public library opened its doors on a crisp October morning in 1922. The council is handing down future generations a legacy of knowledge and sweeping away the misery and poverty of the past, said the mayor in his opening speech, a thinly veiled reference to the fact that only 2 years previously Asylum stood on that site, notorious for its cruel treatment, which even today, as most of you know, locals now refer to the park around the library as Barmy Park. Yet despite these hopeful beginnings, there were trials ahead. In September 1940, a bomb crashed through the roof of the Adult Lending Library at 5:55 p.m. on what would later be known as Black Saturday, the start of the Blitz. What had been an orderly and well-equipped library became in a split second a scene of destruction. But here the story takes a surprising twist. Rather than simply hurrying for the nearest shelter, the borough librarian, George F. Vale, and his deputy, Stanley Snaith, calmly pulled a tarpaulin over the shattered glass dome roof and set about planning a pioneering social experiment that would transform the lives of wartime Londoners. Bethnal Green Underground was a half-completed stop on the Central Line when war broke out. Builders were working on connecting it to Liverpool Street, but from 1939, it had been locked up and left to the rats. 1 week after the Blitz began, as I'm sure most of you know, EastEnders defied Churchill's orders not to shelter in tube stations and claimed their right to safety. At 78 feet below ground, it was one of the few safe places to shelter in Bethnal Green and was referred to by locals as an iron lung. Over the course of the next 12 months, it was transformed into a fully functioning subterranean community with a frankly quite astonishing array of facilities. There were metal triple bunks sleeping up to 5,000, a shelter theatre hosting opera and ballet, a cafe, doctor's quarters, and a creche, which enabled newly enfranchised women to go out to work. But here's my favourite part, a library underground built over the boarded up tracks of the westbound tunnel. I love surprises in history, and finding out about George and Stanley's secret underground library built over the boarded up tracks felt like nothing short of magic. I found out its existence when I sat down with inimitable 91-year-old EastEnder Pat Spicer. I used to borrow Millie Molly Mandy from the underground library, she told me. I didn't worry about the bombs when I had my head buried in a book. A trip to Tower Hamlets local history library and archives revealed Pat's memory to be razor sharp. There was a photograph of George, calmly stamping books, alongside copious written memories. Libraries in converted shops in village halls in mobile vans are common enough, but libraries in tube shelters are something new under the sun, his deputy Stanley Snaith wrote in the Library Review in 1942. When Londoners took possession of the tube, it was quickly evident that a new social situation was in being. The wheels of bureaucracy clearly moved fast in wartime, and a grant of £50 was approved by the council. The borough surveyor was quickly on the job, wrote Stanley. All last summer the caverns echoed to the din of hammers and saws. The result was a triumph. The library, which had a captive audience during a raid when the doors were locked, was open from 5:30 to 8 p.m. every evening and loaned out 4,000 volumes of consciously chosen stock. Romance sat alongside literary classics, children's books, poetries and plays. Stanley wrote movingly of his patrons. Each dusk sees the first contingent making its way down to the bowels of the earth, the well and the ill, the old and the young. They come trooping down, carrying carpet bags, parcels, bedding in sheets or drab sacking. Here a choker docker, there an undersized lad with an atlas load improbably poised on his head. Rough people, nice people, typical EastEnders. He added, in the library the youngsters are vocally busy with their book selection, but why should they not chatter to their heart's content? These youngsters are now in their 90s and memories of this library are embedded in their hearts. It was a sanctuary to me, Pat told me. By 1943, I was 13 and there had been so much horror. The Blitz, the tube disaster. You can't imagine what that library represented to me as a place of escape and learning. It had a profound effect on my life. I wonder how George and Stanley would feel at the plans to sweep aside 100 years of history. Proposals on the table, as you know, include slashing Bethnal Green's opening hours from 50 to just 15 or closing it altogether. How many jobs will be lost? How many librarians left out of work who have toiled heroically throughout this pandemic to support their users? I feel emotional writing this and reading this. Does history count for nothing? How is it that during a climate of fear, deprivation, economic instability, the wartime predecessors found the means and the imagination to not only extend in opening hours, but actually open new branch libraries? The Blitz and COVID are very different beasts, but the effect on reading has been the same. Never have we read so voraciously or valued our libraries so much. Reading became for many the supreme relaxation, wrote George Vail of his wartime patrons, which sounds incredibly familiar to us today. In Tower Hamlets, where hundreds of children live in cramped, overcrowded homes, many rely on the borough's precious libraries as a sanctuary, a space, an extension of their living rooms. Let's hope that when lockdown eases and people emerge from their homes, they don't find the library door locked in their face. Thank you for listening to this.